Hey everybody, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-0. We are once again joining the crew of the Chestnut here in very eccentric Mars orbit, as they are getting ready to make several aero-braking passes around Mars to lower that apoapsis from 40 million meters to something just a little bit more respectable. We do have a resupply pod that is going to make its transition into Mars SOI in about 23 hours or so, and a course correction to make for our Mars lab food missiles, snack bombs. Really should settle on something for that. Anyway, so we're going to get them oriented a little retrograde, I guess, or rather aerodynamic forces are going to do this for us. Leaving the solar panels open, they will provide us with lots of free drag as we make this approach. We're only going to get down to about 64 kilometers or so. That is a resoundingly safe altitude to make these passes for, and we do have lots of life support supplies here for the crew, so we're not really worried about them running out of time. There's no sense of urgency really as far as getting them docked to Harmonia Station quicker. We do have some fuel. We could make a burn and just speed this all along, but it's really just kind of a waste at this point, especially considering they have ample room to move around and do stuff, and stretch their legs, the built-in gym, probably consoles instead of handheld entertainment devices, stuff like that. Anyway, they are already on their way back up, and it looks from our basically zeroed out maneuver node that they got about 44 something free meters per second of braking through that pass. Not bad, so we'll just accelerate out until they are free of the atmosphere, and then it's probably time to switch over to our food missiles and make sure that they can make their inclination change on time. It just takes a good long while to actually switch vessels here. There we go. Anyway, out here at the frame rate killers themselves, of course, all of this is just sped up because this thing's just really irritating to deal with. So one of the first things I wanted to do was find out which one of these are only partially fueled and maybe top them off a little bit so that we can see exactly how many of these are going to be viable for deployment in the coming months. And so we'll just take some fuel out of our primary tank as soon as it decides to actually respond to anything. Kind of a weird something or other, but we'll jump into time warp. We'll get this thing in the sun. Turns out our batteries were dead because we have a whole lot of probe cores on this thing pulling a whole lot of battery power. So really, we just need to make sure that whenever we do stuff with this thing, it is in daylight. So at least what's that? 6 more of our drop pods are officially fully fueled, or at least they should be. Yeah, the top containers on all of those are fully fueled. I think we have another 6 that are entirely empty. As far as fuel is concerned, they do have full life support supplies on hand. So we're gonna kind of think about what is best to do with those as far as I don't know, either getting them to the surface or maybe even getting them to Harmonia Station. Should we actually decide we need to use these supplies? So in the meantime, all the ones that are empty, we're just going to lock the batteries on their avionics. That will, I mean, effectively kind of shut down their core, or at least they won't be getting recharged, where everything else can get recharged a little faster. Anyway, and we will go ahead and warp ourselves around to our inclination change. Now, it's not exactly mission critical that this thing be on plane with Harmonia Station. It just benefits us because we know it will put us over the landing site for our Mars lab, which is currently docked to Harmonia Station. It's just a matter of convenience, and it's only about 75 meters per second or so of delta V, and I think we can actually spare that. We'll just deal with Kerbal Alarm Clock, interrupting our progress here briefly, and light the engine and throttle it way back as we kind of bounce around that node for a little bit. But we overshot that relative inclination by just a little bit. I think we can actually top it off, but again, there's no real reason to be exact with this. I mean, a couple of degrees off would totally be acceptable, but we'll just dial that relative inclination down by just a little bit. We'll use some time warp here as we hold on the brakes for a little bit and get that work down to about 0.8 or 0.08, 0.09 or so. And that's going to do it for this. We'll leave it in a parking orbit until we decide to start making some aero braking passes with it much later. In the meantime, we do have this resupply pod, the only one to successfully intercept Mars from our latest Mars window, and it is about to make its SOI change. Now we do have a little maneuver set up here, which probably should have executed a whole lot sooner, because man, that's just way off. We do in fact need this to be on plane with Harmonia Station, because we do actually need to dock this thing. So we will just refuel our thruster port pod fuel tanks. That's the word I'm looking for. They are fuel. And this way we can take advantage of the thrusters there on our B upper stage. It does still have about 495 meters per second of fuel remaining. We're going to use that to start a braking pass as we get closer to Mars, which means, of course, we need to do an about face. But first, this inclination / course correction is absolutely necessary. We're just going to use RCS for this. It's only, like less than 40 meters per second. So a little bit of overcorrecting here and there, not a big deal. The very powerful ports on the Lima supply pod itself, and then of course an assist from those tidy ports down there. With the aid of physics warp, we were able to walk through it relatively quickly while switching back to map view just to make sure that things were going well. They were not. We will replot. It's another 30 some odd meters per second or so to get us closer to where we would like to be. This will take care of most of the fuel that we have in our reserve tank. Of course, that's just kind of there as ballast to shift the weight of the spacecraft closer to the heat shield during capture, and then hopefully we can empty the whole thing out into our primary fuel tank once we no longer need the heat shield, so that we don't have to make any corrections with our main engine with that thing still attached. Just a couple small little touch-ups here and there to try to bring our periapsis a little closer to our ascending or descending node. The reserve tank's pretty much empty, so we're gonna just rely on our onboard fuel systems, although we will be pumping fuel forward into that reserve tank again as soon as we can make sure that we are not actually going to pile into Mars at many kilometers per second. So we'll start to shift some of our fuel forward. We will need just a little bit of fuel down here in this B upper stage when we go to actually reignite that HG3 engine, which we'll just set a node arbitrarily this kind of far-ish away. Probably could have done it closer, considering we've got about 31 seconds of runtime, but I wanted to give us plenty of lead just in case the decouple command doesn't work or doesn't go through or something else dumb happens. I want us to have a couple of minutes of leeway there where we can manually toggle some actions, and hopefully everything will still work out well enough for us. So with that node set up, and it is a day and some change away, we will be switching right back over to the BPR Block 1 Chestnut M so that our crew there can make yet another aero braking maneuver. Pretty much no changes from our last flight plan. We'll just time warp through most of this. Thunk. They've hit Atmo. We've got our dummy node set up so we can see exactly how much speed we will bleed off with this pass. And with RCS set to disarm, they're basically just tumble around. I can't imagine it's comfortable, but I mean, really, they're in orbit of Mars. This has to be some kind of it's got to be still kind of exciting. I know they've been here for a couple of days now, just in orbit, making these passes, drifting around. Not a whole lot of science for them to do just yet, in that, well, we honestly didn't bring any sciencey bits for them on this craft. They're all awaiting them back on Harmonia Station and on the Mars drop base. Already we've displaced about 32, 33 and some change meters per second of free braking, which does not seem like a lot, but when your orbit is this eccentric, it does make a difference. Although we could dip down lower in the atmosphere and try to shave our number of passes down by a significant amount. For right now, we are just playing it safe, and they are now officially clear of the atmosphere, so we will set another node, set another alarm. That's got about 18 hours, which means there's nothing else going on before they can go ahead and make their next pass. So we'll just time warp around and let this process repeat itself. I imagine there's going to be several days of them performing these maneuvers because it's safer this way. No spoilers. But guess what next episode's all about? Anyway, they are now in the atmosphere, our dummy node, once again, keeping track of our total displacement. Just a quick check over how much fuel we do have left. There's our alarm. We're still at more than 200 days of life support supplies available to them, so we are in no actual rush to do this faster. But I will just feel a whole lot better the quicker we can get them on station. And that's just a beautiful shot, I'd say. If they were holding a consistent orientation, it might have made it to an outro clip, but it just looks like they're drunkenly flailing around. Yeah, not the best look. Anyway, we are about 2 hours out from our resupply Lima being able to make its burn and then its subsequent pass through the atmosphere. So we will jump back over to this vessel, double check our fuel stock there in the B upper stage, because as soon as that engine is lit, we're going to pump that fuel back forward into the supply pod itself. So we'll start to get things set up for our flight computer. As far as when we can retract these panels, when we can deactivate our comms. The last thing we want is for all of that stuff to get burned off or so. And we'll just program our burn here into Flight Computer. I'm not entirely sure it's going to work very well, but I just wanted to make sure that something would happen. Maybe we'd be able to light the engine. Of course, I'll probably have to ullage it manually. And yeah. Again, making sure our comms can get turned off. I will also be setting a activate command for these comms once we have cleared the atmosphere so that we can regain connection and start doing things in, I don't know, a better time frame, I suppose is the best way to put it. So we will just consolidate some fuels as best we can. Although, yeah, did I just pump fuel out of the B upper stage when I meant to pump it back in? I'm not entirely sure what the hell I did. Okay, yeah, so I did. And thank goodness I realized it. So now we can pump some fuel back into one of those fuel tanks, get ourselves oriented into our node. We've got just about a minute before we have to light that engine. Of course, 31 seconds of runtime, totaling now 508 meters per second. It's a little better than last time because we bled off so much Aerozine 50 and nitrogen tetroxide. There's our alarm warning, giving us the 1 minute out signal. We're going to run the clock down until about the 15-second mark. Good ignition on the HG3, and that does displace the entirety of its fuel payload without failure. Thankfully, there's engine flameout, and now we're just waiting for that decouple command to go through. And waiting. The best thing we can do is actually get oriented prograde, and for some reason our engine has lit. That's not good, considering all the fuel tanks for it are locked. Means we're probably going to have to do a F5, F9 at some point to make sure that that fuel tank or that engine actually knows that it does have fuel. So if we need to turn and burn here, we're just kind of SOL, because we are very much inside the atmosphere, and there goes the B upper stage in the most fantastic fashion. I'm really glad the onboard cameras got to catch that glorious bits of explosions as we start to generate some heating. And of course our ablative struts have burned themselves off. We'll just do a little bit of braking thrusters, but our set periapsis is about 33 kilometers, based on something of this mass. That should be enough to capture us into a pretty good orbit. The last little bits of our B upper stage disintegrating in the atmosphere, except for the ones that didn't. We'll see those in map view later. That's quite confusing. There's our camera change indicating that we have in fact hit orbit, and we are on our way back up, already up to about 43 kilometers, or 35 kilometers actual. And it looks to be a very solid capture. Absolutely, positively textbook, according to plan, and all of those other nice things. So we'll just transfer the fuel out of our reserve tank into our mains, and then start to set up flight computer to jettison said heat shield once we are clear of the atmosphere. Of course, with all the RCS tanks locked now, we're just gonna kind of sit in this weird little free spin of sorts. But we will level out once we're clear of the atmosphere, which is now. We can use some time warp, and we'll just go ahead and get ourselves spun around to the next available point. So we'll just set our node here to change our inclination way the hell out here, and that will put us on a nice course for intercepting Harmonia Station at some point. All the commands went through. There was a F5, F9, there is about to be an F5, F9 at some point. Now, there already was, because this engine lights without failure, if I remember. I don't remember where I did the save point on any of this anymore, but it's a 140.9 meter per second correction to bring our relative inclination with Harmonia Station down. Nope. Insufficient fuels to ignite, which is absolutely not true. So... yeah, I guess I'm just kind of slow to pick these things up sometimes. So here is the F5, F9. And now with the engine recognizing the fact that there is fuel in the tanks behind it, we can go ahead and light it up to make this inclination correction. We're down to about 0.04, which I'd say is well within margin. Yeah, bouncing on these thrusters tends to make it go up, so we'll just leave it at 0.17 because, you know, hey, why the hell not? We will also set up a node down here. We are in a parking orbit. Our periapsis is 131.683 kilometers, so we will not be hitting the atmosphere. We will, however, be coming within 17 some odd kilometers of Harmonia Station. There she is. A very nice view. Anyway, that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out. I really do appreciate it, and I will see all of you in the next one. So, until then, see you later.